Hey guys, Tanner back with another video, and I'm on a huge fishing phase right now because I'm actually going canoeing up in Canada here soon. So I'm building a little survival fishing kit, if you want to call it that, and it's going to be a big kit. It's not going to be a pocket kit, which I'll make another video on that because I'll be carrying one of those as well on this trip. But this is going to be just a big full-size fishing kit, and I'm not worried about weight, so because I'll be canoeing. So this is going to be my tackle box that I'm going to bring. I'm going to be taking some things out of these two tackle boxes. I got a couple others that I've messed with, but I'm just going to kind of go through this and tell you guys what I bring and why I bring it. So the two most common fish that I'll be fishing for up in the lakes that I'll be in Canada, which is going to be in the middle of the wilderness, but from what I believe is the lake has northern pike, one as smallmouth bass, and those are the two fish that I know most lakes up there have, and I've caught them many times up there in the past. So that's kind of what I'm gearing up towards. Now there's going to be a lot of miscellaneous fishing items in here that'll give me more options to catch other fish, but for the most part those are the fish that I'll be targeting. So let's go ahead and get into it. Like I said, this is the kit that I'm making, and I'm still shifting some things over from this, but I'm going to go over what's in this already, and then we'll switch to the other side because there's actually a side underneath this. We'll talk about what all we have. So first things first is we have probably 6 or 7 MEPs. So if you don't know about these are all different sizes. So they are like, this is a number three MEPs, which I believe is good for like smallmouth bass and things like that. But those are just honestly, those are kind of a catch-all. One lure and you can catch pretty much anything. They're not really picky. They're just kind of something to fish with. Not necessarily my favorite thing to use, but also something that I don't write off ever. So, anyways, moving on, we got a couple silicone like worm or fish hooks. Those I'm not a huge fan of just because they're not really reusable. The second a northern pike gets onto this, it tears this up because of all the teeth and everything. So I brought a couple of them because they do slay some smallmouth bass. I've caught a ton of fish on this, especially bass. So they're not a bad lure by any means, but they're not my favorite thing just because they're not really reusable. So moving on, we've got a couple daredevils and spoons of other sorts. These are, in my opinion, these are my favorite thing up north to fish with. Now, the main reason why I love fishing with this, and there's two main reasons, is because one, it's a metal spoon, so it's literally about as durable as it could be. There's nothing that could beat this thing up. It is as durable as could be. It's never gonna break. The only way you're gonna break this is by actually not breaking it, but losing it by snagging it or whatever. So you can fish with these, and they're just awesome. You can catch smallmouth bass. I've caught my largest northern pike ever was using a spoon about the size of this. So here I've got a bunch of other Daredevil spoons and some knockoff brands and all that. But the second reason that I was going to mention is that all of these have treble hooks on the bottom. So these treble hooks, which this is a little bit big, I might replace that treble hook. But the treble hooks, it kind of just makes it very difficult for the northern pike to fall off. Now that is a downside if you're just fishing and catching and releasing, because I've done that before, and it's kind of unfortunate because you end up catching these fish and you hook them on so aggressively that it becomes very difficult to actually remove the hooks from their mouths, and you end up kind of hurting the fish a lot. So luckily I'll be catching and cooking most of the fish and most of the northern pike, so that's not as big of an issue, but that is something to consider if you're going fishing up north. So moving on, we got bobbers. Bobbers are all down here, as well as the rod. These are rod replacements. So for the very tip of a rod, if I break a tip of the rod, that's just an easy way to screw that on and replace it. So that's kind of self-explanatory. But moving on, we've got bobbers, and those are mainly if I'm setting up a trot line and want to just have some worms or leeches or something, or guts or whatever the heck I use with some hooks and just throw it out there and kind of just wait. It's more of a passive fishing thing. I'm not going to use these a ton. Maybe I'll just set up a couple lines from a tree or something and have a bobber, and that's kind of the easy way to use a bobber. I would honestly argue it's a really good survival method because it's more passive than lures or spoons. So that's one thing I really like about bobbers. Obviously, now it is nice to mention that there are a lot of ways to replicate or use bobbers in the wild from wild resources. One of those, for example, is using a pine cone. So you could use a pine cone, or something, anything that floats that you could put in the water and float. You could just hook your line up to it and use that as a bobber as well. So moving on to right here, we got a little handrail. This is just a little primitive kind of survival handrail. This is more so for fun, but it's something that's kind of cool, and this is for bottom fish, which I probably won't use this much up north, but I have it, and I figure why not bring it, just try to use it. So moving on to this, I've got lures. So lures, in my opinion, survival fishing is not about doing everything as primitive as possible, because the reason I think lures are so important for a survival fishing kit is simply because before you catch any fish, you want what's easiest as possible. You don't want to have to go dig for worms. You don't want to have to go put your body in the lake to get a leech on you, which I've done. I've done in the past to catch bait. But anyways, what you want is something that's super easy to catch fish, which a lure is going to do that. You're going to be able to catch a fish very easily with a lure. And what that's going to do is going to give you bait for catching another fish or setting a trap, or whatever it might be. It gives you options because it's not going to be hard to catch a fish on a lure. And once you do, you can gut it and use those guts as bait, like I just said. So anyways, lures are a very important thing. Now, it's not necessarily a super long-term game, because they will wear out a little bit, and you'll probably end up snagging a couple, especially depending on where you're fishing. You can snag them pretty easily. I always do. I always lose a couple lures every trip, but anyways, it's worth noting that they're a very good survival fishing resource to have, because it gives you the option of the second fish mentality, if you want to call it that. So going over to the other side, before we get into these, we'll actually transfer some of this material over to this tackle box. But going over to this side, this is some more nitty gritty stuff. So we've got leaders, steel leaders. So I use these for northern pike. Now I do use braided line because I'm a fan of braided line. I think you catch maybe a few less fish with braided line than you do monofilament, but braided line gives you the option of, one, it's way more durable. So if I do snag weeds or something, I can pull this thing. You see it's 40-pound test. I can pull this thing very, very hard, and it's the chances of that breaking are very, very slim. So I really like braided line. So I always kind of take that up north with me. I don't ever really fish with monofilament anymore anywhere. I think I maybe catch a little less fish, but I don't really care, because I think the benefits outweigh the cons. So right here, you might not be able to see it too well, but these are actually micro fishing hooks. So, well, at least most of them are. There's some bigger hooks in there, but these are micro fishing hooks. Now, the reason I threw this in my little survival kit is because this is awesome. If you get a little creek, if you get a little pond or something that there's really, really small bait fish in there, but not necessarily something you would eat, but not necessarily something that would ever catch on a lure or something. But this is great because you could put a little teeny piece of a worm on that and send it out there, just drop it in literally with a stick or something, and you could catch bait fish all day long with this. So like I said, this is it's just kind of a really good idea, and something that's worth maybe considering if you do go out there into Canada fish, if you're wanting to catch some bait fish, because you can also bring a little minnow trap, which I've done in the past, and that works really, really, really well. So just another consideration. But now here I just got some normal hooks, nothing exciting, as well as here and here. These are just hooks that I'll use for a trot line or something like that. So I do have extra treble hooks in here. So if I pull one of those spoons out and one of the treble hooks is broken, I've actually had a fish break. I don't know how it happened, but break one of the treble hooks. You could use pliers to replace that. But anyways, you got extra treble hooks if you need it. I think I already mentioned this, but we got steel leaders for the northern pike. I don't use these if I'm targeting bass or if I'm in an area where there's just primarily bass. That's another thing that's worth noting about the braided line, is if I just wanted to fish with directly braided line, the chances of a pike getting off are, I don't want to say they're slim, they're not going to happen, but it's pretty slim that they're going to get through that braided line. It's just so strong. So it's not really 100% necessary all the time to fish with these leaders, but it does make it more guaranteed to kind of last more casts, I guess you could call it. So I always go with it. I just think it's it's worth it in my opinion. But now we've got some swivels. So these are just if I want to interchange lures or whatever, fishing for smallmouth bass. Super simple. I got that there. And then these are one of the famous things up north that is definitely worth talking about. So these little jigs right here. So these are awesome. I use the pink all the time. Let me see. I just got a bunch of new ones, so I'll pull out a pink one here. Hold on. So something like this. So I use these all the time. So something that's just, about the size of this, you could it's very versatile. So the way it's versatile is I could hook a leech on here, I could hook a piece of fish on here, I could hook a worm on here that I dug, I could hook whatever it is up on here, and it gives me enough weight to cast with a spinning rod, and I can kind of bounce it off the bottom. It doesn't snag quite as easily, and the benefit with this, in my opinion, over lures is if this does snag, it's easy to carry a whole lot of these, so I'm not really as worried about it. If I lose a lure, I am definitely pretty bummed about it. But these, like I said, it's easy to carry, 100 of these things. So that's why it is a big part of my survival kit. If I were setting out, if I were creating a fishing survival kit, that would be probably one of my most important items I would use because it's just so versatile, and it's better than the hooks in my opinion in a lot of ways if you are casting and retrieving. The hooks are great if you're just casting and letting something sit with a bobber or something, but those are great for casting and retrieving, kind of jigging it up and down. So, anyways, that is that. I do have some weights on there. That's just for, if it's windy or something, and I have a really small little piece of worm or something on there, and that's just kind of to add some weight. But I do have this. I'm going to get rid of that because that's junk. I don't even know why it's in there. I'm going to go ahead and throw this one in there. So some people don't really like these metal fish stringers, but I do. I don't really ever have any problems with it. I don't put a ton of fish on the stringer at once. Usually I'll just catch one or two because it's just by myself. So um, I'm going to take that, and then I also am going to take a pair of pliers. Now this will be separate, but I'm a big fan of actually having real pliers, not just a multi-tool. That needle nose pliers are really nice to have for the northern pike, because sometimes if they almost swallow the treble hooks, I want to be able to reach down in there and get them out if I am releasing them. So it's something that's definitely worth having in my opinion. But moving on to this, I've got a floating fishing knife. So this is actually one of my prized possessions because this came from my granddad. So it's a really special little item. I don't know what brand it is. I don't know if it even has one, but it's just kind of a cool fishing knife. It's something I can use to fillet the fish with. It's something I can use to descale the fish, even though I never do that. But anyways, this I'm not going to throw in there. But so that's that. Now let's go ahead and go through this and figure out what I want to take out of here. And I'll tell you guys kind of why I choose what I choose here. So starting out, I have enough bobbers. Oh, I rigged this little knot in this tackle box because it kept on coming undone last time it was in my canoe bag. So I melted a little stick or a lighter or something, or a needle, and poked it through there and just run this little knot so I can tie it. So this was actually what I took last time. This was my kit last time I went up north. So you can see a lot of variations and kind of more of the similar things. I definitely focused a lot more on the lures, which I love the lures, but I'm going to focus a little less on the lures. And, I have pretty much everything in this kit that I had or that I have in this one now as well. But let's go ahead and get this slightly out of the way. So I'm going to switch this over because I am going to add some of these lures to the other side. All right, so this, for one, there's so many crayfish up there. I've never been to the spot I'm going, so I don't really know. But last spot I've been to, there's a lot of crayfish. And I think this is actually a new lure. I've lost so many of these because I usually throw these close to shore, and they're deep divers. So I've lost a whole lot of those. But this is it's a good item to have in my opinion. So I'll throw that in there. Let's see what else I like. I know I've caught. Oh, there's my favorite spoon. So this is my all-time. Hold on, let me get rid of these MEPs. This is my all-time favorite spoon. I actually thought I lost this. This is kind of surprising me right now that I found it, because I caught a lot of a very big fish on this. I think this is what I used to catch my the largest fish. The benefit with this, in my opinion, is what I use this for is I'll troll this behind my canoe, and it's colorful. It's kind of exciting. I don't know. I just like it a lot. So I'm definitely going to add that to my pile right here, as well as the red and white Daredevil, because that is kind of a classic for up north fishing. And these are, oh gosh, we got a little mess here. Hold on. So these, you can tell this one has gotten hit quite a few times by some northern pike, but this is kind of the perfect up north fishing rig. So let's go ahead and add that in there. Now I think I definitely have enough spoons. I'm not worried about weight, but I also don't want to go overboard and just throw everything I have in there. So let's go ahead and leave that how it is. Now this is another deep diver, but I love this. It just looks like a lot of the bait fish up there. I've used this a lot, and I am going to throw this in there just as another lure. Oh, here's another crawdad lure. That's one I use quite often. So nice little lure. So let's see. Is there anything else I want? I kind of want a shallow diver, which I think that this is a floater and it dives shallow. I'm not really sure, but I see some bite marks on the back of it, so I'm going to trust that I used it and caught some fish in the past. So let's go ahead and add that in there, because why not, you know? And I'm going to leave these guys because I don't want to overload myself with lures. But let's just do one more for fun. This one looks kind of cool. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever fished with this, to be honest, but it looks like a legit fish. So let's go ahead and throw that in there. Now that is about it. Oh, I have used these small lures. These things get torn up by all the fish, even the little perch. So that's one thing I really like these small lures for, is if you find a perch bed, you can throw these out there, and my gosh, they will tear them up. So let me detangle these, and we'll go ahead and add this little guy into here. Screw it. Let's add this little crawfish too. Yeah, why not? Then we'll add that. Yep. All right. I'm getting a little aggressive, aren't I? So, ooh, this is one of my. Oh, I was gonna say this is one of my other favorites, but I remember I broke it, so I did break that on the trip. But anyways, I was gonna throw that in there, but we'll go with this. I think that's plenty for now. So let's see what else we got. I got a little piece of duct tape rolled in pen. This was just kind of the survival aspect in me, as well as a lighter. I don't know. Not necessarily really important to have, in my opinion, because I have these in my kit other places, but I guess I made it last time I did a trip, so I'll go ahead and put it in there just out of respect for myself last time, just because why not? You know what I mean? I do have a lot of lures, but I do have a lot of leaders, but I just bought a bunch more, so I'm gonna leave those in there for now. I had a knife sharpener, but I don't need that. That knife sharpener is junk anyways, so let's go ahead and leave that. Now let's go ahead and open this guy up. So more lures. So this is, again, these two are both what I brought with me on my. This was actually a 30-day alone in the wilderness in the Canadian Minnesota border. So Canadian and Minnesota waterways, and so this is, like I said, everything I brought with me. This I have no idea why I brought with me. I don't know if I ever used, but that may have just been for fun to see if I could catch a monster. I don't know. That's a pretty big lure, but oh, these are definitely the snake eyes. So these snake eyes have been very, very popular in the past. I know some people that really love fishing with these, but like I said, the spoons, that's just kind of my favorite thing. So I don't know if I'm actually going to take anything out of this pouch, because there's just not really much that I would need. But I will take this little perch lure. Doesn't fit, so I'm not going to take it. But that is a great lure. I've used that in the past, and obviously it's a perch, so anywhere where there are perch, it really mimics that pretty well. So anyways, that's my kit. So this is not going. Put that aside. So that is my kit. So you can see I got lures, some random stuff like a little hand line right there, duct tape, lighter, bobbers for a trot line, some spoons for active casting and reeling in, as well as trolling on my canoe when I'm traveling, some MEPs, just because MEPs are kind of a traditional lure that's, always works, and you never kind of question that. So then on the other side, going over it one more time, which I might add some things in here, but for now this is what I got: jigs, which are the jig heads. Those are, like I said, one of the most versatile things in fishing. This is just a recap for you guys. Then some weights for random miscellaneous items. A simple metal stringer for catching fish, obviously. And then leaders for northern pike. I got about, I think, 8 of them maybe. Some extra line, 40-pound test, braided, because braided is the best in my opinion. Extra treble hooks for whatever you need it for, or a lure replacement. A bunch of hooks of different sizes, and then, like I said in the beginning, some micro hooks for catching bait fish. So anyways, this is my little survival fishing kit for Canada. If you guys have any suggestions or anything that works for you, please do let me know. I'm very, very curious. I do not want to consider myself an expert in any means. I am just someone who, has spent a lot of time fishing up there, and I've caught a lot of fish. So I'm not an expert by any means, but I do have an idea of what works and what does not work up there. So, but if you guys have any other suggestions or anything, please do let me know. I am very, very curious about it, and I do want to pick up some more things. So if you guys have any ideas or anything that you guys think works better, then let me know, and I'll probably go pick it up at the store. So thank you guys as always, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And we'll be doing some wilderness videos here soon, and it'll be a lot of fun. I can promise you that, because I am beyond excited. In fact, it is something that has been very, very important to me, and I haven't really done a whole lot this past year. So it's been quite hard for my life, but it's just the way my life has gone the last year has been different than I expected. So anyways, thank you guys very much, and I will see you guys in the next video. Tanner, out.